Once people have the external environment clearly defined and they're all together moving as one, what we find is that their ability to produce is absolutely optimized. All the variables are taken care of, and now they can keep the main thing the main thing. Now, that is the space you want to be in if you're trying to produce and you're trying to do that at a high level. And so this leads me to wonder, why isn't every organization, especially that's playing for keeps, dominance in the market share, sustainability, they want to be the top player? Every single person in your workforce should be treated to the level almost like of a pro athlete, where it's like you guys are all getting compensated. You're getting all the benefits. If you have an issue, we will meet your issues immediately because you matter. And we're going to let you know that. Every single person is incredibly important. And so sometimes people say, well, why does my job exist? What exactly do I do? What is my organization trying to achieve? There are a lot of people that aren't as clear on that as they should be. We want to leave no doubt. And if all those things are taken care of, people will be able to get the job done. Welcome to the Performance Pulse podcast. I'm your host, Antone Wilson, high performance coach and founder of HyperSpeed Health Technologies. We leverage data and technology to amplify your performance physically, mentally, and financially. If you're driven to maintain a winning mindset in every endeavor, then you're in the right place. Stay tuned. What's going on, everyone? I'd like to welcome you to episode 0 of the Performance Pulse podcast. This podcast is sponsored by HyperSpeed Media, and it is formerly known as W.I.N Daily. Now, we were fortunate enough to shoot 32 episodes of that podcast, and it is found on Spotify, Google, and Apple, as well as on YouTube. Anyhow, we decided that we wanted to rebrand the podcast entirely and align it directly with some of the things that we are doing here at HyperSpeed and really honing in on making this about health and human performance. Now, why this is episode 0 is because this podcast is generally going to have different people featured, from military operators, high performers in the business space, retired athletes, current college and professional athletes. I have a large list of guests that I am very excited to bring on here. But first things first, I wanted to set the stage with this newly branded podcast and this exciting new production that we have going on. So before we even dive into episode 1, it's almost like this is the precursor to our vision moving forward. Now, with that being said, every episode will be released on Wednesday at noon, and we look to be releasing a new episode every single week until further notice. Now, jumping right in, this episode is called Functional Operating Capacity. That is a term that we created here at HyperSpeed to evaluate the impact that work has, not just physically, but mentally on employees in the workplace. But before we dive into a little bit more about functional operating capacity and how we measure health and well-being in the workplace, first I wanted to talk a little bit for those who don't know about HyperSpeed Health Technologies and some of the things that we do. We've been at it now for about 2 years, really about 4 to 5 months since we have been operating, conducting research, and we are now located in the Boston area. And to put it in the most simple terms, what we do is we provide health screenings. The health screenings are pretty advanced, and they consist of a risk assessment, which is 20 questions, which allow us to evaluate an individual's medical history, their athletic background, the impact work has on their life, their physical fitness levels, and really establish who they are, all based on age and gender. Now, we have some proprietary metrics, so age and gender are the key components to further understand an individual and compare them to the rest of the population. The next component is InBody, which is a body composition analysis. I have our InBody right here in front of me. And we take the data that is gathered from a InBody scan, and we integrate that with the results from the assessment. And then the third component of those health screenings is a blood pressure test. Now, those three data sources come together to give you a HyperSpeed performance rating. Anyhow, as that data all comes into our system with an integration with OpenAI, we're able to contextualize it and provide you with an overview based on positives, which are some of the things that you're doing well with your health and wellness, some health risk factors, things that you might want to be concerned about, and then recommendations based on your current conditions of things that you can do right now to improve your overall health and well-being. Now, that's our core product. Now, we're able to leverage that and do some unique things with it. And we have the ability to integrate with wearable devices. We're currently connected to 6 different devices, and we look to add more as time continues to go on. Very exciting. Beyond that, we do have the performance rating, which is really based off of what averages are. And that is like resting heart rate, average hours slept relative to age, resting heart rate levels, average calories burned. I think I said resting heart rate levels twice. All right, now we got the cobwebs off. I haven't done my own podcast in a while, so I apologize to the viewers. Got to shake off the dust. I got to get my reps in. It's like playing receiver. First play, the DB comes, pops you. Okay, we're here. All right, so now that we're comfortable. Yeah, those are some of the different things that we do. And what we're most proud about is the fact that we can give you the personalized insights that are AI driven right on the spot. Anyhow, we have a lot of human supervision behind some of those insights, and we're constantly refining our prompts to get an optimized version of what those results are. And those aren't the end all be all. And we also have some unique components like being able to ingest all of this data in conjunction with another assessment, which takes into account like the type of equipment that you have access to, what type of things you're doing when you work out, what some of your eating habits are like, and based on what your goals are, along with time, like your schedule, how frequently you're working, when are your time slots to exercise. And we're then able to provide you with a personalized report telling you how you should train, which you could also give to your coach, which can allow them to understand you better and aid them in providing a program or a plan for you. So those are some of the different components that we do. But upon 2 years of, I guess, market analysis, we established that we are going to bring this system to the workplace. If you see me looking down, just looking at my notes, have a couple things to cover before we really dive into the meat of this. Now, as it pertains to functional operating capacity and what led us into this, I guess you could say this corporate wellness space. And that is that we look at corporate wellness, which is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and it's just very gray. Some people define it as an extension of perks and employee benefits. Sometimes it can be a gym on the site at your job. It could be a trainer coming on site a couple times a week or a month, which is complimentary of the company, extended meal plans, ongoing assessments and screenings, but these are rather vague terms, and there's not one universal way to identify what corporate wellness even is. So that immediately presented an opportunity as my team come from a background of health and wellness in conjunction with tech. We have a lot of experience working directly in the field and have conducted a lot of research, whether it be with wearables or with different population groups, even athletes, along with the 13 years of experience that I bring to the table as well, with some pretty high level different groups of people. So taking all of that experience into account in conjunction with the metrics that we've been able to develop in-house, along with the various solutions that we could provide, whether it be online coaching, remote monitoring, on-site workplace observation hours, team dashboards. We realize that HR can only do so much in understanding the needs of each employee. and looking at personnel almost like a sports team, or almost looking at it like your soldiers in the military, and being able to provide a lot greater depth to the scope of an individual's well-being. And we feel like in the workplace, the teams are so large. And so we're able to provide our service to a large group of people and then identify what some of the trends are as it pertains to their health and how they're responding to the workplace, to now understand these are the conditions. This is the state of the environment, and this is how the employees are responding. The variable being the work environment is the one thing that they all share, regardless of the rigors of their life, the nature of their job, and their responsibilities at home. And so when we see a trend amongst a couple dozen different employees, we can now pinpoint that to something going on in the workplace. Ultimately, you might pick up on these trends internally, or maybe someone in HR does. But I think when it comes to this in-depth analysis and also gathering the right data to validate it, I just think that nobody's really paid enough to go in there and gather it, present it, and provide solutions. So we recognize that there was a real gap in the marketplace. Burnout is more prevalent now than ever. And I also think that the demands of the average employee have began to change, especially here in America. We're seeing a lot more remote work and a 4-day work week. And people are beginning to value their health and well-being and are not going to allow work to dictate the terms of their life anymore. And so as there is this empowerment amongst employees, we'd like to play a role in facilitating that, defining the workplace of the future, and empowering the top organizations to basically say, this is how we're doing things correctly, and it makes it a more intriguing place to work at. That's some of the things that we're doing here at HyperSpeed, why we chose to focus on the corporate wellness space, and I guess some of the value propositions you could say that we present to our potential customers. Now, as we talk about the functional operating capacity, what exactly does that entail? And I might just say FOC for short sometimes. And we're really, really proud of the fact that we developed this term internally, because we really feel like it defines, I almost like to say, the energy expenditure or the demands of a job that, and the impact that it's going to have on an individual. So we examined the environmental health risk. We tried to dissect what the workplace conditions are. We established what the trends are in employees' behavior. We look at different team dynamics. How much collaboration is there? Are people isolated? Is it a very community-like atmosphere? We obviously have our health analysis, but then diving into more of what is the nature of a job? What do daily tasks consist of? How often are people seated? How frequently are they on their feet? And then we also take a deep dive into how are they measuring production? Productivity could be based on screen time, or how many hours you had in the field, or how many phone calls that you made, or rate of production if you're in a space like manufacturing, or if you're in a space like healthcare, how many patients did you see on a given day? We want to understand how they measure production, and then what are the costs per employee, from the benefits that they're receiving to reimbursements from health-related costs to the number of workers' comps, along with their salary. And so beyond what an individual is earning, what are the costs to have an employee on your staff? And then how can we minimize that, or perhaps reallocate that to optimize the value per employee? And also understand what the value of each employee is, and if they're performing to the best of their ability, why or why not. Anytime we step into a workplace, we obviously are going to offer our screening, and that is our primary service. But that is just the beginning, because if we go deeper down the rabbit hole and we get into observation hours and then take a deep dive into their health cost analysis, we're able to then provide them a written report, taking the health data in conjunction with the behavioral data. We also almost like to say sociological and physiological, and then basically the employee's response, which is the psychological, and then provide them with an extensive team dashboard, which are trends in their workplace where they compare to other organizations, and then their health metrics relative to the public. All those things make up our services, but it's beyond that, because we are now able to look at how many hours they're working a week, what their activity and their eating habits are, how employees are responding to stress. And once we know how performance is gauged, we're able to now look at where they want to be, where they're currently at, and what their needs are. And so we are trying to help teams establish what their standard is of performance. And why? Because I think any organization would like to know, is this a good job? Is this a good place to work? Now, if you have a lot of turnover, people calling out of work, people getting sick really, really frequently or getting injured, that's obviously not a good sign, but we want to create some objective metrics to validate that. And if you're currently paying for other corporate wellness programs or various health services, are you getting a result? Are you getting your return on investment based on the health and well-being of your employees, which we take a deep dive into examining? We're able to establish that. Another core component is evaluating Maslow's hierarchy of human needs. But basically looking at where an individual is, and is their job even paying them enough to meet the standard of living in that city? Does this person appear to be healthy? Are they malnourished because they can't even afford to eat or live? Are they isolated? Are they so overworked that they have no other aspect of their life that's properly being developed, which is creating an imbalance? And so we have our own internal way to evaluate where someone's needs are being met and the impact that that will have on not just the individual's performance, but ultimately the organization, and then ultimately the greater good of society. And we like to compare the employee's well-being relative to the population. Some other insights that functional operating capacity presents to us is the stress that one is enduring physically or mentally related? And if there is a lack of engagement amongst employees, what is the source of that problem? Now, we're able to see if benefits are working, and we're able to see if there is a negative effect on repeated tasks, or if people are not responding well to management. And so it's interesting how the data can allow us to read between the lines, but beyond that, this is rather transferable across various industries, because embedded in what we're evaluating, there's a physiological, sociological, and psychological component to analyzing a team. Now, going back into Maslow's hierarchy of human needs, which begin with your physiological needs, which is like food, water, warmth, rest. When we say work-life balance, yes, you're damn right that work can drastically reduce your ability to meet your physiological needs. And the more you work without getting the proper rest, the proper nutrition, or work makes you so busy that you are neglecting those things, that is always going to catch up to you and you are going to crash. Now, how can we reduce the nature of the fall, if you will? Next thing being your safety needs, which is like, what's going on at home? What is the quality of your environment at home? Is it dangerous? Now, a company that can compensate their employees pretty well don't got to worry about this. But in a job where someone is underpaid or they're not getting sweet benefits that can facilitate a higher quality of life, you better believe that a pretty shitty job can drastically impact someone's home life. The next thing is belongingness and love. And I always like to say that an individual does not have the capacity to be rational and allow themselves to be a teammate or a spouse or even just be in a relationship if they don't have their physiological or their safety needs even met. And so that is the third step, which is like, okay, I'm stabilized. Now I can give myself to other people. And level 3, I call these levels of humans' operating capacity, and based on what they have access to in the state of their life, that's going to then determine their potential to achieve more based on what they want. But that state of belongingness in love, that's where we can now tap into unity, connection, collaboration, that sense of belonging. And that is your esteem needs, which is level 4. Level 3 is where I believe everyone in the general public should aim to try and get to. But when you start tapping into esteem needs, which is why I said it's based on what you desire, because it's like once you find a significant other and you got your basic needs met, if you start trying to achieve more, well, that's on you. Now, not everybody is motivated and, wants wealth or wants, some of the finer things that life has to offer. And that's okay. But if you're going to try to achieve more, that's not necessarily a necessity, but it is absolutely attainable if you have the first 3 steps taken care of. And lastly, it's self-actualization, and that's recognizing your capacity to attain your full potential and really just maximize every aspect of your being, recognizing who you are, finding meaning in your life, and beyond a state of seeking validation from the external environment, but you're in a world where it's you versus you, and all your financial needs are met, all your personal obligations are good. You are totally autonomous. I would say that very, very few people in the world get to this level. It is very, very difficult. And it is a state of mind. And again, you need to have all those other things taken care of to then reach that level. Level 3 is where we should aim to get to. If we can get to level 4, that is phenomenal, but that's not for everyone, and that is okay. Now, why this matters is because I created what I called Coach Wilson's principles. Okay, and these can be applied in every aspect of life, any industry, governing body, team, group, etc. And I look at it like this. It's kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of human needs, but more of a societal overview behind it and putting into account what someone does for work and the impact that a good job, a strong organization, and a strong community can have on the greater good of society. And it goes like this. It's like level 1 is going to be home, food, shelter, sex, etc. Okay, just call it what it is. Those basic needs. It's almost like level 1 and 2. Level 3 is what I call human rights, and it makes me think about diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think that is a buzzword, unfortunately, but it should just be implied that a work environment should try to maintain a diverse employee base where people think differently. People come from all different backgrounds and all different walks of life. And what I find is that that's what facilitates the most creativity. When you have people coming together who are totally different and think differently. That's when you can start pushing boundaries. We want to make sure that everyone is accounted for, everyone feels safe, no one feels like they're discriminated against, and people feel like they belong regardless of where you come from or what you're into. So human rights absolutely being people feeling secure, but more so from a different lens of like what they have access to. And if they feel like they matter and they feel like they have a voice. The next one is unity. And it's very similar, but I say unity from the lens of like no one over anyone. We're now going to break the tier of like management, or this is my boss. I even hate the word boss. Now, sometimes it's important to have leadership clearly defined, but everyone is coming together. There's a clearly defined vision, almost to the point where it is just repetitive over and over again, because every single person is aligned and they know exactly what it is that they are trying to achieve. When you can have people really believing in something greater than themselves, that's when I think the power of human potential becomes incredibly powerful. Now, once people have the external environment clearly defined and they're all together moving as one, what we find is that their ability to produce is absolutely optimized. All the variables are taken care of, and now they can keep the main thing the main thing. Now, that is the space you want to be in if you're trying to produce and you're trying to do that at a high level. And so this leads me to wonder, why isn't every organization, especially that's playing for keeps, dominance in the market share, sustainability, they want to be the top player? Every single person in your workforce should be treated to the level almost like of a pro athlete, where it's like you guys are all going to compensate. You're getting all the benefits. If you have an issue, we will meet your issues immediately because you matter. And we're going to let you know that. Every single person is incredibly important. And so sometimes people say, well, why does my job exist? What exactly do I do? What is my organization trying to achieve? There are a lot of people that aren't as clear on that as they should be. We want to leave no doubt. And if all those things are taken care of, people will be able to get the job done. And lastly, when you have an abundance of thriving organizations, especially within a region in which everyone who lives in this community makes X amount of dollars and has, discretionary income, and they're able to take vacations and they're not overburdened with the rigors of their job. They love what they do. Well, now you have a community in which people aren't fighting for their survival, and now we can look out after one another. And what that means to me is prosperity. And so it's like, well, it's just a job. No, I firmly believe that if you have a strong work environment and your organization is contributing in society and an organization is creating a large amount of jobs and changing the state of people's lives, that is now giving people a better quality of life. And then those people are then going to give that energy back to society. And that's going to drastically change this world that we all share. And so that's how I view this hierarchy of like what goes on an individual level, to then feeling empowered, to then belonging to something, to being positioned to produce, to being able to prosper. And my comparison of this approach, and a lot of why I got into this space with HyperSpeed, was looking at the sports world in the military and seeing so many parallels amongst those two groups of like teams, leadership, structure, organization, having clearly defined roles. And then you look at the nature of like the workplace, like the corporate world, if you will. And it's like, why aren't they referencing those two sectors and trying to be just like them? Now, what you see is some of the top organizations are. Now, obviously, they have more capital and they're able to do so, but it's not necessarily about how much money you have. It's where you allocate that money and what necessarily matters, okay? Because if you give someone a 4-day work week and the ability to work from home, you might be able to cut their salary $10,000 and keep them happy. Or you might be able to invest in some programs that give them access to things that are cutting a large amount of their budget, but now you're providing those in-house, so now they can reallocate their funds. And so companies have to get very, very creative with this. But what I find fascinating in the military, and I'm going to look at my notes here for a second, bear with me now, world, is that when the military is able to cover like dental, your insurance, they can pay for your education, they can cover your housing, they can cover your food. Again, you don't got to do nothing but focus on your job. I think that is a position that we would all like to be in. I'm not worrying about those external factors. They're covered. I'm good. Show up to work. You got to be here at this time. You're going to do the same thing every day. You're going to have your days off. When you're here, you're ready to work. But when you're out, enjoy. Oh my goodness, it's not that difficult. That being one of them. Another one being pro sports teams. Now, again, they have world-class facilities. They have top-of-the-line medical staff. They provide their team with, great equipment, apparel. And those small things make a major difference. I know when I was in college, I didn't have, money to my name. I was able to get my meals covered, and I was able to wear cool warm-ups and get all this t-shirts and shorts. And so it makes, your crappy life as a broke college student 10 times better. But looking at, I went to a junior college, think about Last Chance U. When I was there for 2 years, my quality of life was crappy, but we ate good. We got to travel and got to see some pretty cool stuff, got some free stuff, and you got to play some football. So it makes up for it. Oh yeah, and you learn a thing or two. And so again, also being able to facilitate the long-term growth of an individual, giving them upward mobility, a path to potentially a higher earning or, greater status. You start taking care of people in other ways, which you see sports teams and military doing, not going to have to pay them that much because they're taken care of. Now, companies like Facebook, they got a physician on site. Google has a full-blown cafeteria. Amazon has housing on site. Apple has a shuttle that will drive people to work, to and from, every single day. They're covering these small things because those companies are so focused on staying at the top that they're going to make sure that their people are taken care of easily. It's like, I believe the lowest paid person at Google is still making like $150. And regardless of the nature of their job, Google's doing so well, you're damn right they should be making that type of money. But again, it's what are the values of employees? And we have to define that. But what is the nature of their work and what exactly are their needs? These are all things that we are trying to evaluate, and I think it is incredibly important. I'm going to be saying this till I'm blue in the face, until the day I drop, and that is if you take care of people's basic needs, you let them know that you care, and you give them something to fight for and believe in, they will put it all on the line for you, and they will produce. And I think that's incredibly powerful, and that's a sense of belonging that we all yearn for. But transition on out. It's about 33 minutes. I guess that's ironic. It's my favorite number. And the origin of the name HyperSpeed is HyperSP33D, which I do love. And we had 32 episodes of W.I.N daily. And this is actually our 33rd production, which is fantastic. I think this is the perfect juncture in the road for us to now transition into Performance Pulse. I love the way this has gone so far, shaking the cobwebs off, and slowly but surely we're going to get more and more consistent. I also have a podcast that I was a guest host on about a week or two ago called the Kids First Podcast, where I discuss some of the problems in youth athletics and the impact that that has on a young child's psychology as they get older and try to find their place in the world, to find my voice and get on the path that I'm on now. And I think that playing sports, at least to the age of 14, at the very minimum, has a major impact on anybody's life, just from developing structure, a routine, being coachable, working well with others, competing. Those things are incredibly valuable. And we don't want to give people participation trophies, but being a part of something matters, and we can't get away from that. I think NIL is good. I'm all for empowerment of players, for the empowerment of people as a whole, but I think it's got out of line, and we forgot the fact that kids go to college to learn and ultimately find a place in the world and belong to an organization where they can contribute or develop the skills to build something themselves. For whatever reason, we've lost our way, and it's become, let's accumulate as much money as humanly possible. And some could say that this American economy facilitates that pursuit, but I think that that is rather inhumane, and I think that that has some catastrophic long-term implications. But moving forward, as we wrap this thing up, in the upcoming weeks, we're going to continue to kick off with Performance Pulse. I have a good friend of mine that is going to be interviewing me on our next episode. And I'm going to be talking more from the performer standpoint, whether it be doing media work, my time as an athlete competing on game day, still do some coaching now. And that's going to be coming out in about 2 weeks or so. And on this podcast, I'm going to continue to discuss different elements of performance, team building, culture, and the impact that health has on performance. That's what we're about at HyperSpeed. Those are the things that hold near and dear to my heart, and that is my area of expertise. And I'd love to continue to educate the public on some of these things, along with finding some high-level people and getting into some in-depth discussions. This is episode 0, and trying to set the bar very, very high with my approach to my everyday life, and trying to surround myself with other people that do so as well. Making sure I stay aligned with my truth, knowing what I don't know, and being in a learn first mindset in which any situation that I may stumble upon, there is something to be extracted regardless of the outcome, and I can gather that little nugget, take it with me, and allow that to drive me moving forward. Now, if you like what you see here, please subscribe to our podcast, whether it be on YouTube or on Spotify. I don't know how all the other platforms work. I just know that I recently got Spotify, and I absolutely love how that one works. But the goal remains the same. I'm still trying to win daily, but most importantly, just get 1% better each day. And I'd like to open this this journey to the audience. And for anybody who stumbles upon it, my name is Coach Wilson, and I'm here for a reason. I know exactly where we're trying to get to, whether it be the people here at HyperSpeed or the different clients and the people who I play a role in helping them achieve their dreams as well. It has been an exciting journey over the course of the last 2 years. And for all that I have been through, it feels like I am now on my path and we are truly getting started. Now, this is the Performance Pulse, but that is all I got. Win the day, y'all.